What happened though? Because around that time, black characters on primetime was so positive. Maxine was a lawyer. Different World had the kids.
Yes.
Cosby Show was a doctor and a lawyer. But then it was just like, oh, let's flip the switch and show some negative representation. What happened?
Well, I don't know exactly what happened. I think racism happens. There's an institutional, structured racism and bias and prejudice in people's minds. And I think even after the huge success of Cosby Show, 227, Different World,
Linda Single Martin.
Will Smith's show, there was no reason for them to digress or go and divert themselves to that. But that's exactly what happened. And you can only say that, it's showbiz is monitored by real people. And that's not only did that happen, they segregated television. In fact, they got rid of mostly black cast shows from 2000 until like Shonda Rhimes started to show up.
I'm your professor, I will test you in the worst way. Don't bring that scantron, pop quizzes all day. Cause of our chemistry, we do biology.
What's happening, fam? L.A.R. movement still moving. Subscribe or die trying. You see the thumbnail. More importantly, you see the clip. Google a book first so you can find it on Amazon. Now, I don't know if the video can get monetized because of the Breakfast Club thing, and I don't know if they're going to copyright it and me not be able to play it, so I don't know. But I needed the clip from Erica Alexander because of this. A lot of people do know what happened. And in the 80s and early 90s, there was a lot of good shows about black families, right? And now you see people talking about the destruction of the nuclear family. And even, the thing about the 90s shows was they were a lot of two-parent households that were taking other kids. You see what I'm saying? Who weren't their own kids. So you got a lot of that in the shows. It wasn't just the Fresh Prince. Family Matters was the Urkel thing. Parenthood. I forget the other show. If I'm not like Hanging with Mr. Cooper wasn't that per se, but he took in other kids. In the House with LL Cool J, he took in other kids. He wasn't married, but he wound up taking in other kids or whatever. And it is a far cry from Different Strokes, where Different Strokes was the white guy took in the black kids. But the most important thing that happened in that time period was A Different World. Because when the Cosby Show came out, and it was the biggest show in the world, or the U.S., I don't know if it was the world, but but in the U.S. at the time, and really it saved the network. What happened after that was A Different World was the spinoff, and A Different World, because it was at Hillman, which is a made up HBCU. They tracked the enrollment of black kids in historically black colleges. And what happened was, because of that, and I'm going to say, I think that was part of the reason why it was shutting down those shows, because quote unquote black excellence and people going to HBCU and becoming a doctor or a lawyer, that, part of that, it was part of that television dream. Not for everybody, but people, it helped it out a lot. It went from, how can I say this? Art imitates life and life imitates art. So initially, people were going to HBCUs in life to get ahead because they couldn't go to predominantly white institutions and becoming doctors and lawyers and scientists and all kinds of other stuff, right? And being a stand-up person in our community. Then you had the time where people started going to predominantly white institutions, even around that time. So the resurgence of people going to HBCUs was like, oh, what did we just do? Because even with sports, I would say the early 90s to the mid 90s was really the last wave of a lot of people from HBCUs becoming athletes. Because people don't realize some of the, like Avery Johnson went to school, I want to say, with Bobby Fields. Bobby Fields passed away. But he played for the Hornets. At the same time, he might have went to school with Aeneas Williams. They all went to Southern. at the same time. And Aeneas Williams a Hall of Famer, and Avery Johnson might be a Hall of Famer. I don't know, but you have three people, and you have other people from other schools at the same time. You get what I'm saying? People talk when you hear the pivot talk about Jimmy Smith. Jimmy Smith went to, was it Alcorn or Jackson State? I forget. But I forget which one he went to. But Jimmy Smith was in college at the same time. You know, there's a few other people, Jake Reed and all this other stuff. That's, we're not gonna get into it. But the reason I'm saying it is because now when people talk about representation matters, part of that representation people thought was unreal because they were thinking like, yo, these people, a lawyer and a doctor never be together. That's unreal. But people forgot about all the people who went to HBCUs and became lawyers and doctors. People forgot about that. And it started to bring a resurgence to that. And you started to see the movies that was, even the gangster movies, they was teetering into that. Somebody was gangster and somebody was conscious. You get what I'm saying? Somebody was dumb or violent. Somebody was very smart, and it still had that respectfulness of we're going to leave the people outside of in the streets, they're going to be in the streets. The people outside of the streets, we leaving alone. So the representation started changing to be more, you would say negative, and because it was more negative, you got more negative imagery. Because you got more negative imagery, you have more people believing in all the negativity. You know what I'm saying? So, and then they went a long stretch without shows because, if I'm not mistaken, Fresh Prince was like the #1 show too. And it was a diversity, like Living Single, which she was on after she played in, after she was on the Cosby Show, because she was on the Cosby Show at the end, actually playing a cousin that, they took in. But somewhere along the lines, she was in Living Single, and people say Friends is basically the white version of Living Single. From the variety, and you got to even think about the music and the representation, because the music was still, it was shifting. You still had to make great music, even if you made gangster rap. Your music had to be better than everybody else's, because the acts were still there. Like, you gotta understand, the 90s, Dr. Dre and the Chronic was out, but at the same time, R. Kelly was out. At the same time, Outkast came out. Tony Braxton was out. You get what I'm saying? Biggie was out. Joe, the singer, was killing it. You had to have, like, we had a plethora of people who were just excellent. So, Drew Hill near the end, the mid 90s, you had a bunch of things going on. New Edition got back together, So the image was becoming very, very, very powerful in the sense of you saw a great future because you saw so many people that were Black being excellent in so many different ways. That, to me, what happened was they had to kill the representation and just put and started focusing on negative, because and because y'all don't remember the same time that even with Michael Jordan and all that other stuff, that's the era that they're talking about. People just kept putting the Black guy's face for homicide on the news. It was just the good far outweighed the bad, but then they just started putting bad more and more and more and more and more. But I'm gonna leave it at that, and y'all tell me what you think. Like, share, subscribe, or die trying. Catch y'all on the next one. Peace. You ever been at the top of the universe? I'm gonna tell you that.